everyone, and welcome to The Hash. It is Friday, celebrating the end of the week and diving into some of the latest crypto and culture news. And we have today Zack, Seward, Will Foxley, Ben Powers, and Jen Sanasie, as always. And I'm going to throw it straight to you, Zack. What have we got to start off with?
We have got some fresh details about Bitcoin in El Salvador. So President Bukele went on air today and said that this thing goes live in early September, and he shared some details about how it's going to work. Everyone can download a wallet, lovingly called El Chivo, and you get $30 value in Bitcoin in that wallet after you confirm your identity with a facial recognition scan. So the details of this thing continue to come together. These are some concrete details. Bitcoin bumped a little bit in price on the news. It's interesting to see this coming together a bit more tangibly. I'm going to throw this to you, Ben. What is the latest that you are reading when it comes to El Salvador, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're seeing this slow rollout of details, right? And that's to be expected. I'm happy about that. Like, I know that we talk about announcements, but what to me is like, what's the underlying infrastructure for all of this that's happening? You know, I think the pre-deposited wallet is an interesting idea. It's really an incentive mechanism for people to get in. And obviously, if it's $30 of actual Bitcoin, then that can increase in value too if the price goes up, right? It depends on when they kind of pay these things out. So that's a really interesting idea. Certainly an incentive for people to get involved into it. Something that gives me a little bit of pause, though, is the facial recognition aspect of verifying your identity. That brings a whole other host of questions and a whole other host of kind of potential hangups when you have like centralized governments interacting with Bitcoin in this way. Because, you know, where's that data going? How's it being used? Is it being stored locally on a device or something like that? Or is this just going to be fed into, you know, centralized servers and potentially, you know, used with like law enforcement or stuff like that? These are all sorts of things that have been well documented as occurring in the US and other countries around the world. So, you know, when centralization and decentralization kind of clash, you have this sort of these sparks that fly and raise a lot of questions for me, particularly as a privacy and security reporter, that I think remain right now unanswered.
Yeah, but you got to get it so that people just can't claim the free money over and over again, right? Is there some mechanism that you would hope that President Nayib is looking at to make sure that this goes well? What would you advise to avoid the scamming that is often comes with free crypto money?
Yeah, I mean, there'd be a couple different ways. To me, the facial recognition aspect just feels like a little bit of overkill. I mean, you could use a kind of one-time identifier and claim it. You know, there's obviously like redemption codes that could be generated potentially. There's a lot of questions in terms of how this could be sorted out. Maybe there is a decentralized way or a DID that could be used. But to me, just immediately going to like facial recognition is something that I kind of automatically like want to put the brakes on and take a little bit more time looking at, because that's like not only personally identifiable data, it's like biometric data, and that can be fed into not only machine learning algorithms, but a host of other things that can impact people down the line without their knowledge. So those are my elements of concern particularly.
Will, I'm tossing this to you. Are you moving to El Salvador for the $30 airdrop? Yes or no? Yes or no, sir?
Oh, flying down there. I need that $30 Bitcoin.
Done.
Stat.
It's a yes or no,
Done.
Will?
It was
Doesn't
a
care
yes.
about
We heard a yes.
Down there.
Done. He's there.
No, it's super interesting. This made me think of the Uniswap airdrop, which very, very different situation. But it was about like 6 to 9 months ago, and everyone who had interacted with Uniswap was just gifted a bunch of Uni tokens, and then over the subsequent 6 months, the price of those tokens, I think like if you held them all, like went well over 10 grand. So interesting to see that now we have like a national airdrop, and I don't really know if that has happened before. I mean, there's been forks and stuff where there's just been like a large swath of population has been gifted tokens, but this is a really interesting chapter in crypto's history. The fact that you can just kind of, it's like a UBI of sorts, where you're just like moving money everywhere. But I kind of echo Ben's security problems with this. I don't really know how to solve them though. I don't know if anyone has really solved that issue yet. Naomi, your take?
Yeah, I think I have a lot more reservations about the whole thing than anyone else on the panel. Let's not call it free money. Let's call it taxpayer money, and let's call it a redistribution from less tech-savvy people to more tech-savvy people, those who are able to get these, wallets and learn how to use it and integrate with all of that. They get money that are being paid for by the rest of the population. So yeah, I don't see it as a good thing. If it was a private company coming in and saying, we're donating, we're giving this to people, it was Strike saying, hey, we're really happy about this. We've got this fund, we did a fundraiser, all volitional, money, we're handing it out. That would be super. But this is government expropriated money that's being redistributed. They're picking winners and losers. They're saying people who use Bitcoin get more money than the rest of the people. I'm definitely not a fan of that.
Is there also
Naomi,
a national wallet? Sorry, Jen, go ahead.
No, that's okay. To Naomi's point, when I think about this, so it's $30 in Bitcoin. The average minimum wage in El Salvador is like $250 a month. So people are really incentivized to go and do this. And then there's this facial recognition element to it. So you think about people who are largely unbanked, maybe they're operating cash businesses, and now there's this mechanism to track what's going on. It's all starting to feel very eerie to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. You got to get the network effect there. You got to get people who have a little skin in the game, right? That's the name of crypto. A little bit of skin in the game.
Let's mandate these things. Let's force people into this system. Let's expropriate wealth because, the ends justifies the means, right?
You got it.
I think this is sort of my general philosophy on these things, where it's like let's hit the pause button and let's look at how some of these things are being situated, right? People are really love Bitcoin, they are all for it, and this seems to be a way to push it forward. And it's all the ancillary stuff that I'm really interested in this regard. This is a nationalized wallet, seemingly. It's a little unclear whether it's custodial or non-custodial. We're talking about Bitcoin being put into these wallets, so people come and they interact with it, associate an identity with it, and then you have a potential registry of all of that. It does hearken to me, and I know it is not the same thing, but you're having all these centralized controls implemented into it with CBDCs in China and the digital yuan, where there's money being deposited to people's accounts so that they will use it, and then it can be accessed and data can be collected around them. And so I'm not saying those two things are the same. Let's make that very clear, aggregators. Those two things are not, but you're seeing elements of control being instituted into both, and that to me is a really weird space for Bitcoin to be playing in El Salvador.
Naomi, I was looking at the rundown.
I'll wrap up there.
Yeah, I thought your story was Cookie Day.
For sure, but on that note, Ben, I just want to mention, the Bitcoin in El Salvador, it has all of the potential to be amazing. They just need to take out these elements of coercion, and it would be super. So I think Bitcoiners should push back until they do. But Cookie Day is indeed on the table. And we all love cookies unless they're from Google. So Google has made all of these grand plans to eliminate third-party cookies from their Chrome browser. Chrome obviously has the vast majority of the market share in terms of browsers. And they announced last year they would be eliminating third-party cookies, which basically are things like bits of script that get put on your machine, and they're able to enable people to track you as you visit various websites across the web. And this is something that most browsers have actually already eliminated, and Chrome was really the last one to kind of come along and say, yeah, we love privacy too. Well, it turns out they don't. It's been pushed back by nearly 2 years, this plan to actually eliminate these things that all these other browsers have already eliminated. So it's kind of, it's not surprising. I'm going to throw this straight to Ben. I know you have a lot of thoughts on what's going on here. So fill us in and maybe some of the backstory as well of all this.
I mean, yeah, the sugar in these cookies is your sweet PIP data, right? That's used for ad tech targeting. So, wow, I mean, there's a lot going on here. I think it's really interesting. I don't know. I personally am fascinated by these kind of dynamics. So, yeah, Flock was like Google trying to get at a more privacy, yet still could do ad targeting sort of way. Flock basically, as opposed to taking your individual browser sort of histories and browsing behavior and stuff and feeding that to advertisers, just kind of put it in a big aggregate pot with a lot of our other people. So while, they couldn't target you individually, they could say, I want this demographic who might be looking at this and is doing this. And rather than being a little bit more targeted, it would be a little bit broader. That being said, there's been a lot of pushback on this for a variety of reasons. One is which ad tech companies don't particularly like it. Two, the idea being that this doesn't make browsing more private. This just makes Google be able to be the one feeding you ads and kind of, coalesces more their already monopoly they have over the ad tech industry in a lot of ways, which I think is actually where this kind of stems from. Not only are some Chromium-based browsers not adopting this, like Brave and DuckDuckGo have actively disabled it from their systems and said they wouldn't. This has also brought a lot of antitrust scrutiny because of that pushback, because of this being their sort of cementing of their market share around this. And so I think that might be a little bit more the 2-year pushback, as they don't want that heat right now, than sort of sorting this tech out, in a more general way, because this is not an issue that's going away. It's going to be incredibly thorny. And I think that, for better or for worse, Google's in a position where whatever they do, I don't know that it's going to be, met with applause from all sides. And I also, I could nerd on this for a long time. So they talk about federated learning, and that's not what this is. That is a separate thing. But I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. And Will, I see you smiling. Take it away.
Yeah, and Jen also had her hand up as well.
Sorry, Jen, go.
Okay, I was just going to say, I see both sides of the coin on this. I want to read a quote from the article. They said, unlike cookies, users cannot clear their fingerprint and therefore cannot control how their information is collected or used. Therefore, they want to take more time to look at, other alternatives that users are going to be able to have more control over instead of digital fingerprinting. And so while I see that argument, I think we also have to look at Safari and Brave and all these other browsers we're talking about. They're not advertising companies, and Google is. So they're incentivized to collect this data. They can compare themselves to all of these other browsers, and then they have the next 2 years to collect this data. And I don't know. I see their argument, but then I also feel like there's a lot going on behind the scenes that they're not telling us. So I'm a little bit skeptical. And again, I feel like there's just no solution here. It's a sad, sad day for privacy.
No, there's absolutely a solution, Jen. And also fingerprinting and this federated learning, what they're calling federated learning, which is different, is actually different to fingerprinting. So they're saying that if we force people into this flock system, then you're going to have these advertisers go under the radar, try to do fingerprinting as a way of tracking people instead. Look at what Brave is doing right now. They're awesome. They're saying, hey, let's do this federated learning thing, but let's have all the data stored locally on the individual's computer. So none of it is passing through the server. You don't get that monopoly of information or that wonderful treasure trove of data that Google wants to collect. I mean, it doesn't make sense for me that Google is saying, well, we've got to hold back because, fingerprinting's so bad. We want to protect consumers. That's such bollocks. They could be doing something similar to what Brave is doing and storing that on the individual. Sorry, Jen.
Is there a way? I was going to say, totally agree with you. But is there a way for users to erase their fingerprint?
No, there isn't. But you can change around parameters that you're using. You can, change up, clear your data, change the fonts, change the size, you can play around with that, delete plugins. It's very difficult though. Your fingerprint kind of does follow you. But Will, I saw your hand go up. I'll throw that to you.
Yeah, just to put the other side of the market in perspective, it was interesting to see Opera today announce the integration of some stable coins. So there is the ability to start integrating better and newer tech, but I think Google's just dragging its feet because it's incentivized not to. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's shut it down, guys. So we're going to take a break. We're going to talk about Jay-Z doing an NFT of some reasonable doubt inspired artwork. We'll talk about that after the break. Stick with us on the hash and have a happy Friday while you're at it. All right, thanks. I can talk.
Coming in hot.
And welcome back to the hash. So you just saw the price of Ethereum and Bitcoin on the screen during the little halftime show we got going on. But now we're going to take a look at another token, DFINITY'S ICP token, which has been living in the trash can for the last few weeks after its pretty whopping launch, I think a few months ago now. So it went live and it hit $695, I think, at peak. And it's now down 95% since then, which is a pretty phenomenal chart there. I don't know if we have an image of it up, but yeah, just like a cascading red candle downwards. DFINITY launched this token after a few years of working on it. The idea is just to make smart contracts that the whole internet can operate on top of. It's another competitor to systems like Ethereum. And a lot of hype, a lot of VC backing, and now it's dumped seemingly into bear market grave for right now. So interesting to see that story. Naomi, have you been following the internet computer token history and its launch
first,
throughout
I
the
have
year.
not been
Can you
following
tell
this
me
at all.
what is an internet computer?
An internet. It's a great
What is the
marketing
internet,
name.
Will?
What is an internet computer?
Yeah.
Please tell me.
Yeah, let's go back to Satoshi and start with the ICP. So, internet computer it's supposed to be like an Ethereum-based system where you can do smart contracts, you can put websites on top of smart contracts. But of course, we know with Ethereum, the issue is bottlenecking. So you have slower speeds, and not as many people are running nodes, and not as many people can get transactions through for cheaply. What ICP did is they set up a bunch of data servers all around the world with really powerful computers, and then you can kind of have quick smart contracts and low fees for the system. But it's not really a decentralized system like Bitcoin or Ethereum. So that is kind of the knock on it. But that didn't stop it from getting listed on Coinbase. So, but Naomi, have you been following it? I feel like you probably have more
You
experience
know
with
what?
ICP
I
than
haven't
anyone
been
else here.
following this at all. All I know is that, there are big names behind it. So they raised a ton of money from like Andreessen Horowitz, Polychain, Scalar Capital, Coin Fund, Multicon Capital, Greycroft Partners. And the idea was to create this extension of the internet. But honestly, I just haven't really looked into this to understand exactly what that means, because that's such like a broad statement, and I feel like, well, all of this is an extension of the internet. How is this protocol different? Like, what specifically does it do? But maybe, Will, you can dive into that some more.
Yeah, I can jump into it. So notably, they launched, I think in first week of May, they had a huge fanfare, big event, live stream and all that. Very San Francisco hypey new tech project coming out. But the idea behind it is like fairly simple. You want to have smart contracts that execute quickly, and you want to have transactions that are cheap. The issue with this, of course, is to get that, you lose some aspect of decentralization. That's kind of the whole trilemma that they talk about with blockchains, is like you lose one of these three things if you focus on two of them. So the ICP itself is trying to solve that with these weird data centers. Notably, you have to apply to run a node, and you have to go through a KYC check, which, of course, that goes very against the ethos of Bitcoin and Ethereum, most other cryptocurrencies. But I think it's more of like an optimistic take on the future of the world, where if you have to apply to run a node, like the government's not going to come after you. It's just the idea that you want some sort of immutability with your project, and you can run it on ICP, and then the whole internet one day will kind of be able to run on ICP. It's a very different project than Bitcoin and Ethereum in my mind's eye. Zack, have you been following ICP at all?
I have not been following this project beyond hoping for more insane clown posse jokes. So ICP, that anyone? Anyone pick that up? No, I'm just looking for like Juggalo memes, pretty much. I'm like ICP Juggalo memes. Good. All right, that's it. That's pretty much the extent to which I've engaged with this project. It's something that's been in the background, like ambiently happening for a while. I remember January 2020, they pitched this idea of a decentralized LinkedIn. So the vision is very much decentralized web services that we all know and love, but without the centralized middleman. But no, the ICP token crash, to me, is just rich fodder for Juggalo memes, and I'm not seeing enough of them. So if anyone wants to make those, let's make it happen. Hit me up. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for better or for worse, like the sort of idea and pitch of like an extension of the internet is a great way to raise a lot of money from VCs, right? Like that ambition is like what pulls that in a lot of the time, and that grandiose vision. Will, is like the crash here a byproduct of people just not using this, like not buying that kind of core tenant? Because like, similarly, like there are other issues with like scaling and fees and stuff like that. I mean, that's why you see like layer 2s like booming on Ethereum and stuff. And so are people just going there? Like, why is the token crashing? Are people just not taking it up?
Yeah, shortly before we go to the next segment, I would note that DFINITY'S, like the verdict goes out if it's a good product or not. I mean, it takes years to know. It's taken Bitcoin 10 years to get some level of recognition and some price stability, because Bitcoin itself has crashed 80, 90% before multiple times. So that could just be the same instance here where ICP has to go through some sort of evolution. I think it is notable that it does have a lot of VC backers, and then it was immediately listed on Coinbase, which often pumps the price before retail buys bags for heavy and then loses a lot of income. So that's, in my mind's eye, not a great look. But overall, I think it's the hardest sellers or the tokens that fall the hardest are the new ones during these mini bear slumps. So I think that
and that VC backing means they have a lot of runway too.
Yeah, for sure. But we are going to move on to Jen. We got to talk about some rapper class action lawsuits.
Yeah, it feels very 2017, so stick with me. So rapper The Game, who is also known as Jayceon Taylor, is staring at a $12 million class action lawsuit. Court documents filed on Wednesday found that the rapper is liable over allegations that he pursued personal profit in an unregistered initial coin offering by Paragon Incorporated. So this was from 2017. There are also his business partners who are on the run, and no one has heard from them in over 2 years. People are coming after him. Zack, I'm going to throw it right off to you because you always have some really great commentary on stories that have to do with rappers.
Hate it or love it, the underdog is not on top in this one. So that's my call out to The Game. We've been following this story for a number of years. This definitely is very much rooted in the celebrity ICO promotion era, and we've seen sort of like a resumption of that era in some ways, right? This bull market has seen, Kim Kardashian promote Ethereum Max and other people promoting various tokens of various quality. So interesting that, the process of law often takes much longer than the process of crypto things to unfold. So the fact that we're seeing all these sort of like 2017 enforcement actions, be it like BitConnect or be it like this class action lawsuit, sort of be settled or advanced to the next stage in terms of seriousness, sort of during this cycle. I think it's interesting, and it always sort of like it brings you back, right? It brings you back to the past cycle, and it just shows that disconnect between sort of like regulatory cadence and like crypto innovation cadence. So that's my initial take on this one, but I know that Will had his hand up on this.
Yeah, so just kind of following up on your point there, like the long arm of the law does not forget in a lot of these instances. It just does not care what amount of time has passed between the event and the present date. They're going to put you in a court seat. One thing that's notable to me is that a lot of projects that didn't deliver the goods, specifically something like EOS, where they raised billions of dollars and then absolutely put out like zero products and just are sitting on tons of investor cash, they barely got slapped.
Zero price. That's pretty harsh, Will.
I think it's pretty fair. If you read some of the reporting,
they're working on a cool exchange right now. They put out Voice. It didn't do well, but they put it out.
They put out Voice as in the defense column. Wow, man.
I mean, it's a product. You can't say that something's like shitty, like it's a scam or whatever, because they worked on something and it didn't work out. There are tons of startups that raise money and fail because it's just not a good product market fit. I think that's the situation in this case. It wasn't decentralized enough to appeal to people who really wanted that, and it was too decentralized, for a lot of other people who don't like that friction that comes along from decentralized things. I don't hate them for trying out stuff and it not working. I think that's fine.
Well, I think they should refund the money. I mean, we're getting off the topic here.
Did you see how the cops were just coming to get Will? Did everyone see that? How that
was an ambulance.
Light going on? Oh man, the crypto cops on your tail, Will. You can leave now, man. That's
the game.
EOS is coming for me immediately. They're using that $4 billion to track down haters. That my point in general is that there's a lot of really crappy projects out there. I won't name names, but then you don't see them get slapped down as hard as some of these individual people are when it comes to enforcement, which I think is unfortunate in some cases. I'd like to see the law applied evenly, is my general point there.
I feel like this is
but
feels
what
a
law
little
are you
bit
applying
like
here? A law for putting out a bad product? I just don't understand what what law was being broken by someone putting out something that users didn't want.
I will say here, I think it is shaded by the fact that the founder is like on the lam, right? Like with a lot of that money. And I think that this is sort of a way of looking for somebody to target. That's just not a good look, like however you want to put it. So in this regard, I wonder if the game is sort of like being scapegoated a little bit for here. Obviously, there is some legal issues with it, but until they find Jessica Vertig, like anniversary. I wonder like what is going to be happening here. And I do think like just generally, I wonder if we're going to see more and more, like we're seeing certain like SEC actions against other ICOs. This is like an individual kind of civil case, which I think is interesting. And I wonder if we're going to be seeing more of those, because this is definitely not the first. This is definitely not the last. And so, how that kind of rolls out in the future, again, we'll talk in the long arm of the law, like it's going to happen one way or another.
Yeah, well, Ben, I think that's a great segue for you to take us into our next rapper story.
All right. Speaking of somebody who's on top of his game still. So Jay-Z is auctioning off an NFT with Sotheby's on the 25th anniversary of his Reasonable Doubt album. He's working with the artist Derek Adams, and the NFT is going to be starting bidding at $1,000 and is also going to be bid on Decentraland at the Sotheby's auction house. If you know, then you know. So, Zach, I want to toss this one right over to you for initial reactions.
Yes. So Sotheby's seems to be taking this NFT thing quite seriously. They're also being quite serious when it comes to crypto as a payment method. I think it's interesting that earlier this week they announced they were auctioning a 100-carat diamond, and Bitcoin and Ether were accepted payment options for what could fetch $15 million. So interesting to see Sotheby's continue its adventure in digital assets and seemingly embrace some of these things maybe a bit more aggressively than Christie's and other auction houses. So one note there on the Sotheby's thing. And I think the other big note is just the timing of this coming out as it relates to this Dame Dash lawsuit is really, really interesting, right? Dame Dash was allegedly, depending on who you ask, trying to sell an NFT of Reasonable Doubt, or maybe his stake in Rockefeller Records. Didn't really work out. But the fact that you sort of Jay-Z went to the courts to make sure that he could have he could rightfully lay claim to his own NFT auction, I think is really interesting. The timing is quite strange. So that's what stands out to me. I know we had talked about that the other day. So I'll toss it back to you, Ben, on that one.
Yeah, so I talked to a source familiar with the matter, and they really emphasize that these two NFTs are not related in any way, shape, or form. They characterize Dashes as theft of intellectual property versus this being commemorative art. So there are like copyright issues with the Dash thing that are much bigger than this, which is not, kind of laying claim to a broader web of different things. That being said, also I asked Sotheby's, I was like, how long has this been in the works? Because the timing is like quite coincidental. And they said that this has been in the works for a few weeks. So that laid a little bit of that concern to ease in my mind. That being said, it is the 25th anniversary of Reasonable Doubt. Like that is just a time like people are going to be targeting and like people might jump in on. So I think this is really interesting. I do think the NFT is pretty cool, but and I believe Jay-Z also changed his Twitter avi to a CryptoPunk as well.
Yeah,
so
that was crazy. I was tweeting this story out and I'm like, what? I slacked you. I was like, wait, what? Jay-Z has a CryptoPunk for his Twitter avatar
Jay-Z is like
now?
never on Twitter also. And when he is, it's just...
Yeah.
So anyway, the fact that Jay-Z is hearkening to the original NFT as he sells this new NFT, interesting little sidebar on that whole story there. But Jen, over to you.
I think this could be the biggest music NFT that we've seen. I think. Ooh. Jay-Z.
Bold claim. All right.
I think so.
Like
I think
in terms of price?
Well, I don't know how much it's going to go for, but I think this is the biggest artist that we've seen to launch an NFT. Has there been anyone bigger?
I mean, on the music side?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think this is going to go for. I think this is going to go for a lot. And maybe we're going to see Beyonce next.
Ooh.
Okay. Zach, tell me, have I ever heard of what?
NFT.
I mean, Lil Yachty NFT, Post Malone NFT, just iconic rap NFTs. But I will throw this to you, Naomi. What do you got?
Yeah, I just want clarification because I'm not sure I quite understand the situation because I don't really follow rap as the same amount I don't follow sports. So you had yesterday someone else who was part of this group say, hey, I'm selling this NFT. You get a lawsuit against them, and the same people who filed the lawsuit have their own NFT, and we're saying that they're unrelated. Like, I just don't understand how that's unrelated. Like, it doesn't, and they just like shutting down them. And meanwhile, the guy who started this first NFT is like, well, I'm not actually selling artwork or the album or whatever. I'm actually selling my stake in the company. And so it just seems like it's all one big messy NFT battle, no?
There's a lot going on. Sorry, Jen, go for it.
I'll let you finish. I was just going to say, I don't want to be a gossip, but it feels to me
yes, you
like
do.
maybe Jay-Z's NFT has been in the work for a few weeks, as we heard from Ben's sources. And because Jay-Z and Dame have this ongoing beef, like 20-year-long beef, maybe Dame was trying to steal the headlines or get an NFT for himself because there's just some like ongoing thing behind the scenes. And so it feels like there's like this, the bad blood is contributing to what's happening. But
or
this
maybe
is
like
all
he
speculation.
didn't get
Don't take this.
Maybe he didn't get like a cut of this new NFT, so he's like, "Fine, I'm going to go and sell my stake as an NFT and get out of this whole thing." Like, it still seemed like there's underlying like bad blood, as you said, Jen.
Beef gonna beef. Like that is always a constant, right? But Naomi, what you have here is Rockefeller Records was founded by 3 people, one of which was Jay-Z, one of which was Dame Dash. Dame Dash, who was one of the co-founders, owns a third of this company, was trying to sell the copyrights to Reasonable Doubt as an NFT, which has implications for royalties, which has implications for licensing, which has so many different ways. It involves like a lot of money and like a lot of intellectual property. And then, he was hit with a lawsuit around this, which said, you do not own this. And then he walked that back to say, no, I'm actually trying to sell my stake in Rockefeller Records as like an NFT, which again, we talked about yesterday. I don't know what that means in practicality, but this is just commemorative art. It does not have like copyright attached or implications around the aspect of Reasonable Doubt, and therefore has, I want to say, like much shallower tendrils of implications, particularly around intellectual property. So that's the differentiation that I wanted to make earlier, just in terms of how, one is kind of art as we know it. The other one is like IP. And that's a question we always run into with NFTs, but just a little bit of points of clarification there.
Got it.
All right. That is it for the show today.
NFT educational corner.
That was good stuff. I like that. We had a nice contingent of hip hop stories today, and that always brings a smile to my face. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. Big long week. Good work, everybody. We'll be back again next week with The Hash, when we talk about the latest in crypto news and culture. And until then, you should check out on CoinDesk TV at 3 p.m. Eastern, all about Bitcoin. And you should read the site. There's a lot of good stuff on it. I'm going to go edit a Ben story that quotes Will as a source, and we're going to get that on the site shortly. What? It's going to be fun.
Are we going to talk about it on Monday? We have to.
We've been editing so many stories today. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We will talk to you on Monday, and have a great weekend. See you
later.
Bye.